Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Alexis Rasmussen. Alexis Rasmussen was born in 1995 and grew up in North Ogden, Utah, a small town known for its quiet and not far from Salt Lake City. She loved dancing, reading, and spending time with her family, especially with her brother, who was her best friend. They enjoyed watching movies and chatting together for hours. Alexis was cheerful, sociable, and always smiling. She wanted to be independent and earn her own money for personal expenses. Like many teens, she decided to work as a nanny to earn some extra cash. In the spring of 2011, Alexis started searching for a part-time nanny job. She learned of a couple nearby looking for childcare help. She applied and was hired immediately after the interview. The couple, DEA and Eric Millerberg, were 38 and 36 years old, respectively. They were seen as decent and educated, attending church every Sunday. DEA worked at the hospital, and they had 2 daughters. Alexis's meeting with them went well, and they quickly built a good rapport. She started working almost daily, caring for their children while they was at work. The eldest daughter, from DEA's previous marriage, was 5 years old, and the youngest was just 9 months old. Everything was going well. Everyone was happy. Alexis had pocket money, which she spent as she wished and even managed to save some. Eric and DEA were finally able to go to work normally and spend time together, appreciating that their children were always supervised by a young nanny. Meanwhile, Alexis's parents were pleased that their daughter was earning her own money and showing a desire to work, rather than spending time at questionable parties. Many of her friends also worked as nannies or waitresses, so this was considered normal. This thing was ideal for everyone until a tragedy occurred. On September 10, 2011, as usual, Alexis went to babysit the Millerberg family's 2 children during the day. She was supposed to return home in the evening. However, at 11:30 p.m., she called her mother, Dawn, saying that Eric and DEA had not returned from their date yet, and she would have to stay late. She asked if she could stay the night to avoid having to go home after dark. Her parents agreed, they trusting the Millerbergs as a decent family and they think nothing bad will happen. This was the last call her mother received from her daughter. In fact, Alexis' relationship with the Millerberg family was complicated. When she met Day, she quickly fell under their negative influence. Despite their respectable appearance, but they had a troubled past. Both had been convicted for distributing illegal substances, and Eric had committed other crimes. At the time of these incidents, both were on probation for another offense, but neither Alexis nor her parents were aware of this, nor did they suspect she might be in danger at their house. The Millerbergs gradually got Alexis addicted to alcohol, starting with small amounts before hosting parties where alcohol was abundant. Later, they introduced her to weed. She quickly became dependent, and soon they began paying Alexis for her childcare work not with money but with weed. From the outside, no one noticed anything wrong with Alexis. She took very little and returned home late, so her parents were unaware of her new addictions and believed she was in good hands. Unfortunately, this was not the case. On September 11, 2011, Alexis' parents were waiting for their daughter to come home. However, after she informed them the previous day that she would stay at Millerberg's house overnight, she never returned home. Her parents tried calling her, but their calls went straight to voicemail. Too worried for her daughter, her mother, Dawn, contacted all of her friends, but none of them had any information. Dawn has also been in contact with the Millerberg family, who said that she had left their home that morning, and they never saw her again. Then, Dawn reported her disappearance to the police, who promptly began their investigation. Police have issued a missing persons notice for Alexis and questioned Eric and DEA, as they were the last known individuals to see Alexis. When the police arrived at the Millerberg home, Eric and DEA refused to let them inside, saying the house was untidy. They talked to the officers outside, stating that Alexis left their home around 11:30 a.m. to meet a friend, and afterward, the family went to bed and claimed to know nothing more about her whereabouts. During questioning, the officers noticed that DEA and Eric appeared to be under the influence of stimulants, which might have explained their erratic movements and overly cheerful speech. Their behavior seemed suspicious to the investigators, but without a search warrant, they were unable to inspect the house. This made them even more suspicious. The detective speculated about whom Alexis might have planned to meet. They were aware of her boyfriend and considered that she might have gone to see him. The police came to see her boyfriend, and he said they had no plans to meet that morning. To verify this, he showed his phone and his messages with Alexis. Upon inspection, it was clear they had only exchanged brief messages shortly before she stopped communicating. The boyfriend claimed he had no idea where she could have gone or whom she was with. Detectives also spoke with Alexis' other friends and classmates, but nobody had seen her since she disappeared. It seemed like she had vanished. They all mentioned that she had no enemies. She was an ordinary teenager, with no ties to the criminal world. The possibility of her running away was dismissed because all her belongings, including money she had saved, were left at home. She had never run away before and wasn't seen as a troubled teenager. All the leads turned out to be useless. At that time, Alexis' parents were unaware of an app called Blink, which could have helped them locate she. Blink allows real-time tracking of the movements of loved ones and friends who choose to share their location. The app is designed to be secure and does not allow tracking of strangers, which prevents stalking. To track someone, you must send a request from your contact list, and they must accept it. The last time Alexis's phone worked was at Eric's house, which was the last known location of she. There was no evidence that she had left the house Millerberg that morning. Investigators started looking into Eric and DEA more closely and discovered that they had a history of distributing illegal substances, and Eric has a lot of criminal records. During the investigation, police learned that Alexis's friends knew about the true nature of the relationship between Alexis and the Millerberg family. Alexis, along with several other teenagers, including friends who had also disappeared, looked after their children. The teenagers were pleased with these working conditions because it gave them access to alcohol and substances. Multiple witnesses confirmed that DEA sold prescription drugs to Alexis, for which she received about $100. Detectives continue to question Eric and DEA, informing that they knew about illegal drug activities. Then, Eric and DEA admitted to giving drugs to teenagers, but denied any involvement in Alexis's disappearance. Despite their denial, they were arrested for distributing illegal substances and violating probation terms. They faced up to 5 years in prison. The case was further complicated because they were supplying drugs to minors. The police also reached out to Eric and DEA's friends and acquaintances for information, but everyone refused to cooperate. By this time, detectives were convinced that Eric and DEA were responsible for Alexis's disappearance. Detectives have obtained a search warrant for the Millerberg family home and conducted a search. Although they didn't find anything suspicious, they did discover a large quantity of illegal substances. Their 2 children, the eldest daughter was placed with her biological father, while the youngest child went to a foster family. A month into the investigation, a confidential informant contacted the officers by phone. He revealed that on the night of the disappearance, Alexis stayed at the Millerberg family house. She didn't leave or meet anyone the next morning. That night, Eric offered her strong substances, and she agreed to try them. Afterward, she started acting crazy and not understanding what she was doing. Eric persuaded her to engage in intimate relations. During the incident, Eric and DEA noticed that the girl was extremely disoriented and had an unusually low body temperature. DEA, who had medical training, realized she needed urgent assistance. They carried her to the bathroom and placed her in hot water to warm her up. Then, she regained consciousness and seemed to improve. She asked to be left alone to relax. Eric and DEA left the house to smoke and think about their next steps, as they were very frightened by Alexis's condition. When they returned, they noticed she was still cold. They then took her out of the water, wrapped her in a warm blanket, and placed her on the bed. They went out again for another smoke break to discuss the situation. Upon returning, they found she unconscious, with a mucus-like substance coming from her mouth. DEA, being a nurse, attempted to resuscitate her using all her skills, but it was too late. She had already died. Eric and DEA were scared, as they were on conditional early release and were on house arrest, and they did not want to go back to prison. In their panic, they sought help from friends to dispose of the body. They needed a car, which they didn't have, but everyone refused to assist, not wanting to risk jail for aiding and abetting. Desperate, they contacted another friend to borrow a car. He agreed, and they placed Alexis's body in the trunk and drove to another county. There, in a remote forest area, they hid her body. The confidential informant, Smith, reported everything to the police. Initially unaware of what was going on, he lent his car and later helped Eric and DEA move the decomposing body to a remote location. During this time, he heard all the information he shared with the police. Feeling remorse for assisting they, he decided to disclose everything to the investigators, who needed this information. Thanks to his tip, the police discovered the body of Alexis on October 18, 2011, 38 days after she disappeared. The victim was found in a fetal position, with her legs pulled close to her body, partially concealed in a garbage bag. Due to the body's advanced decomposition, the police could not immediately identify her. The body was in a shallow grave. A detailed forensic examination was required to confirm her identity, determine the cause of death, and the circumstances surrounding the incident. The identity of the girl, Alexis Rasmussen, was confirmed through dental records and fingerprints, exactly as predicted. Autopsy results and post-mortem analysis showed that Alexis had 7 times the lethal dose of a potent toxin in her body, which may have been the cause of death. However, there were also signs of strangulation, blunt force trauma, and stab wounds on her body. Due to the body's poor condition and advanced decomposition, it was difficult to identify all the wounds accurately, making it impossible to determine the exact cause of death. As a result, an overdose was concluded as the cause of death, but it was clear that this was not an accident. The girl had been abused. Alexis' family requested privacy during the investigation because she was a minor. A memorial service was held in her hometown of Ogden, attended by many residents. The teenager was buried on October 29th. Informant, Smith, was promised immunity from charges of complicity in exchange for his cooperation. His testimony was crucial in locating the body, gathering evidence, and bringing charges, so he appeared in court only as a witness. During the trial preparation, phone records from Eric's mobile phone were reviewed. On the night Alexis disappeared, he called his friend several times, asking for help to dispose of something. CCTV footage was also examined, revealing that on September 10, 2011, between 10 and 11 p.m., DEA visited the Wall Prince Pharmacy to buy prescription drugs that induce an altered state of consciousness. Police conducted a detailed search of the Millerbird family home using luminol and found tiny blood stains. It was clear they had tried to hide what had happened by thoroughly cleaning. However, luminol can detect blood stains even after cleaning agents are used, which the criminals apparently did not know. A section of the old carpet had been cut out and discarded, leading the police to believe it had blood on it that couldn't be cleaned off. The police were puzzled about the presence of blood in the house since, according to Smith, there shouldn't have been any after an overdose. This suggested that something more violent had occurred and that Alexis likely suffered violence. Detectives then obtained a search warrant for Smith's car, which had been used to transport she. However, the car had already been sold to another district, delaying its seizure. When the car was finally located and examined, it was found that the old trunk upholstery had been removed and discarded, but microscopic blood traces remained underneath. All DNA samples collected were tested and confirmed to belong to Alexis. Smith told detectives that the incident might have been a deliberate murder. Eric and DEA may have sought to eliminate Alexis to prevent her from reporting them to the police for drug distribution and harassment. The police supported this theory, as there were indications of a premeditated crime. Initially, Eric faced charges of child abuse and drug distribution, while DEA was only charged with forging a prescription for medical drugs. After new evidence surfaced, Eric was additionally charged with first-degree murder, attempting to obstruct justice, and engaging in sexual activities with a minor. A forensic examination later revealed that Alexis' body was abused post-mortem, which constituted a criminal offense under state law. Eric and DEA was decided to be tried separately, and DEA's trial began in April 2012. She was accused of illegally obtaining a prescription for illegal substances and obstructing justice. In 2015, she was sentenced to 7 years in prison. However, by then, she had already served 3 years during the trial. She was to be sent to prison to complete her sentence. She was extremely outraged by the jury's decision. Then, she gave a heartfelt speech, expressing regret for what happened, but she did not admit guilt or involvement in Alexis' death, claiming her husband, Barrick, was responsible. She offered excuses and also expressed her deepest condolences to the Alexis family. The court deemed imprisonment appropriate for Eric and DEA's actions, distributing substances to minors, engaging in sexual intercourse, and intentionally drugging a teenager with illegal substances. Additionally, they attempted to hide the body and mislead the investigation. Notably, the body was buried twice because Eric thought the first location was not secure enough. This indicated careful planning of the crimes. DEA stated that after 3 years in prison, she realized her mistakes and wanted to reintegrate into society. She requested freedom, but no one believed her intentions were genuine. Her actions were seen as an effort to avoid more jail time, so the commission decided she should remain imprisoned. DEA was sent back to jail to serve the rest of her sentence. However, she soon became eligible for parole. While in prison, her relationship with Eric fell apart. They argued, and DEA filed for divorce, which was finalized. During his imprisonment, Eric changed the tattoo on his neck from DEA's name to death, which was in English. This change led to disciplinary action against him. In July 2013, Eric Millerbird's trial began. By March 2014, he pleaded not guilty to all charges. He claimed that the night Alexis disappeared, she stayed with them to babysit. After returning from a date, they used substances together at her request. They all attempted to engage in sexual activity. Regarding the drug use, Eric asserted that Alexis used the substances voluntarily. During the trial, Eric's criminal history was revealed. Between 1997 and 2011, he faced multiple charges, including burglary, firearm offenses, and resisting arrest. During the trial, the front rows of the courtroom were filled with Alexis' friends and acquaintances, all visibly grieving. This hearing was particularly challenging for them as it revealed sensitive details about the life of the underage girl for the first time. Previously, her relatives were unaware that she was paid in substances by her employers for her work as a nanny. These adults had gotten her addicted. However, Eric showed no remorse for exploiting the girl. He remained jailed during the trial for providing illegal substances to minors and harassing them. This situation likely led to conflicts for Eric in prison. He was attacked by his cellmate, Simon Russell, who stabbed him around 30 times, focusing on his head and neck. He also suffered multiple defensive wounds on his hands. He was then taken to the hospital, where his condition was deemed satisfactory after receiving first aid. He survived the attack. The day after, Simon was charged with attempted murder and obstruction of justice. Eric's provocative behavior was seen as outright disrespect both in jail and in the courtroom. He not only supplied Alexis, a 16-year-old girl, with marijuana, but also repeatedly attempted to have sexual relations with her. On the night of the girl's death, he assaulted her even after she had died. Eric's wife, DEA, testified against him, accusing him of committing the crime. She stated that he forced Alexis to take 3 doses of drugs and then started to harass her. When Alexis became ill, they attempted to help her, but it was too late, and she died. Despite this, Eric still engaged in sexual intercourse with her after her death. The prosecution supported this account. The prosecutor argued that Eric behaved monstrously, exploiting Alexis's trust, coercing her into consuming hard drugs, and then assaulting her by stabbing and bludgeoning her. They claimed his sexual desire was the main motive for the murder. However, Eric's lawyer contended that DEA's testimony was false, accusing her of manipulating the situation to avoid punishment and by shifting blame onto her husband. Actually, the prosecution only presented communication records from Alexis' accounts, with no evidence from DEA that Eric had given her a lethal dosage of illegal drugs. The medical examiner's report stated that the official cause of death was an overdose, despite other injuries sustained. There was no definitive proof that Alexis didn't inject the drugs herself. Only witness testimonies could clarify any involvement in her drug use. However, Eric and DEA blamed each other. The defense argued that DEA's involvement in the crime was greater than she admitted and that she was equally guilty. They alleged that she urged Eric to kill Alexis and dispose of the body. The lawyers claimed Alexis's death was accidental due to an overdose. Furthermore, the defense lawyers suggested that DEA should bear significant responsibility for the incident. The prosecution argued that Eric supplied Alexis with illegal substances to harm her. She deceased also had other injuries, including head trauma from a blunt object and some fresh wounds, indicating it wasn't an accident. According to the prosecution, it was clearly murder, with Eric directly responsible for her death. They demanded the harshest possible punishment for Eric, describing him as a manipulator who first got the girl addicted to mild illegal substances and then continued to administer them for his exploitation. The trial was highly controversial, with an uncertain outcome until sentencing. Eric advised his lawyers to agree to let him take some responsibility. He believed it was only fair to admit his role in what happened and apologize to Alexis' family, hoping to receive a lighter sentence. However, he denied committing deliberate murder. He claimed he did not inject she with psychoactive substances, attributing this action to DEA. Surveillance footage showed that DEA went to the pharmacy for prescription drugs and forged prescriptions. Despite this evidence, Alexis' relatives believed Eric was the main culprit and urged the judge to impose the maximum sentence. They wanted a life sentence without parole to ensure he would never be released. The court found him guilty of all charges, including first-degree murder, and sentenced him to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 6 years. DEA applied for parole 3 times. Her first applications in 2015 and 2017 were rejected. However, in 2018, her application was approved because she completed addiction recovery courses and a culinary business program to help her reintegrate into society. She was released on October 16, 2018. Eric became eligible for parole in 2018 and applied for release, but his request was denied, and he remains in prison. Alexis' family hopes he will never be released. The case of Michelle Herndon. Michelle Herndon was born in 1981 in a small Florida town with a population of just 7,000. After finishing school, she enrolled at the University of Florida in Gainesville in 1999. Michelle joined the Peace Corps as a volunteer, assisting both people and animals. Michelle suffered from chronic, debilitating migraines. These attacks caused her to experience severe pain on a daily basis, accompanied by symptoms such as nausea and extreme sensitivity to light, smell, and sound. Despite trying medications, herbal teas, and numerous visits to the doctor, nothing helped ease her pain. In 2005, a new school year began. Michelle returned to university to continue her studies. To cover her tuition and rent, she worked at a fitness center. With limited funds, she rented a small apartment far from campus. At that time, Michelle was in a complicated long-distance relationship with a guy named Jason. Her best friend, Jessica, whom she met at university, lived on campus. They worked together, talked frequently, and often visited each other. Jessica's roommate was Oliver O'Quinn, a 27-year-old student from Georgia. Oliver was a great roommate and a friend to both Jessica and Michelle. The three have often spent time together. Michelle shared her relationship problems with Jason, and Jessica was always supportive. Oliver offered advice from a male perspective. Being a bit older and more experienced, they often valued his wisdom. Oliver, a nurse in the hospital's surgical department, began helping Michelle manage her debilitating migraines after learning about them. The hospital provided strong medications that greatly relieved her pain, allowing Michelle to finally enjoy life without those severe headaches. Surprisingly, Oliver had previously served in the Air Force and worked in Africa. Michelle dreamed of moving to Africa to help animals. She and Oliver could talk endlessly about it. Michelle decided to take a break from her long-distance relationship with her boyfriend, Jason. During this time, she met Scott, a funny musician who played guitar in a band. Michelle felt very comfortable with Scott. However, in mid-October 2005, Jason returned and pleaded with Michelle to reconcile, and she agreed. She began making plans to spend Thanksgiving together. Meanwhile, Oliver was not impressed with any of Michelle's boyfriends, considering them frivolous and unreliable. The reason was that Oliver was in love with Michelle. Many acquaintances had suspected this for a while, noting the way he interacted with her and the way he looked at her. Oliver was constantly involved in her relationships and even accompanied her on dates, which seemed awkward, but Michelle didn't mind. She believed that they were just friends and didn't see anything wrong with that. At the end of October 2005, Michelle met with Jessica to share some exciting news. She and Jason had decided that she would move in with him, 500 kilometers away. Jessica was thrilled for Michelle, congratulated her, and asked about Oliver, but Michelle didn't respond. Michelle began getting ready for the move, balancing her busy schedule of studies, work, volunteer activities, and now packing and buying household essentials. Despite the hectic pace, she enjoyed these tasks. As a result, Michelle and Jessica saw each other less frequently, usually only catching up during their weekend volunteer work. They planned to have dinner together on November 9, 2005, looking forward to catching up and sharing stories. However, Michelle didn't show up for the meeting that evening, which was uncharacteristic of her. Jessica tried to call her friend, but she didn't answer. She assumed Michelle was upset about something and believed that was why she didn't show up. Jessica left several messages asking Michelle to explain what happened and why she was upset, but Michelle never responded. Jessica decided not to wait any longer and went home. When she got home, Her phone was dead, so she charged it and went to bed. The next morning, on November 10th, Jessica discovered many voice messages on her phone. One was from the fitness center where both girls worked. The administrator asked about Michelle's absence, as she had not been at work for a couple of days. Their shifts didn't overlap, so they didn't see each other at work, leaving Jessica unaware of Michelle's absences. Understanding the significance of this project to Michelle, Jessica became anxious. She worried that something might have happened to Michelle. Jessica tried calling Michelle again, but there was no response. She then reached out to all her friends, but none of them knew where Michelle was. Concerned, Jessica got into her car and headed to Michelle's house to check on her. Meanwhile, after learning about her daughter's disappearance, Michelle's mother also drove to another city to find her. The drive took about an hour. When Jessica, who arrived first at Michelle's residence, got there, she saw police officers had sealed off the area as a crime scene. It was then that she received the heartbreaking news: Michelle had died. Nearby, she noticed a distressed Jason. Michelle's mother later arrived at the house and made the horrifying discovery that her daughter was dead. There was no sign of forced entry into the apartment. All the doors and windows were closed, the lights were off, but the TV was on very loudly. Nothing had been stolen. Police found the body cold, indicating that Michelle had been dead for some time. She was lying face down with her left arm underneath her body. There were no wounds, bruises, or injuries that would indicate a violent death. It appeared that Michelle had fallen asleep and never woke up. Police believed that Michelle, 24, died of natural causes. Her body was sent for an autopsy and police conducted standard procedures, interviewed neighbors, and asked forensic experts to examine the scene. No fingerprints or DNA were found near the body, and neighbors did not hear or see anything suspicious. Police believe Michelle had used illegal drugs and died of an overdose. Police searched the apartment for drugs or paraphernalia but found nothing. There were only a few bottles of beer in the refrigerator. Next to Michelle's body on the bed was a half-empty beer bottle, which had only her fingerprints on it. As a precaution, the opened bottle was sent to a lab to be tested for any foreign substances or possible poisoning. Tests showed that nothing had been added to the beer. The medical examiner was unable to determine the cause of Michelle's death. She appeared to be completely healthy, with no illnesses other than migraines, which were unlikely to have been a significant factor. This led to many questions about how a young, healthy girl could fall asleep and not wake up. The position of her body was unusual for a natural death, raising further doubts. The expert concluded that Michelle died on the night of November 8th. The medical examiner is continuing a more thorough investigation to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, the police are looking into who she might have been in contact with around that time. Initially, questions emerged regarding Michelle's boyfriend, Jason, who was the first to arrive at her apartment and call the police. How did he end up there when he lived 500 kilometers away in a different city? Police brought Jason to the police station for questioning. Jason explained that he hadn't been able to contact Michelle for 2 days. Concerned, he drove over 5 hours overnight to check on her. Upon arriving on the morning of November 10th, he knocked on her door, but no one answered. He continued calling and knocking without success. Seeing Michelle's car in the parking lot, hearing her dog barking inside, and her phone ringing, he feared something was wrong. Looking through the window, he saw Michelle lying motionless on the bed. He then immediately called 911. The police arrived, broke down the door and found Michelle's body in the apartment. Jason appeared very sad and distressed. He had an alibi for the time of Michelle's death because he was in another city, so the police released him. The medical examiner provided new information after a careful examination of Michelle's body. A small needle wound was found on her left hand, located under her body. Police contacted her doctor to see if Michelle had undergone any tests or procedures the day before, but the doctor said no. The needle wound was in an unusual location, atypical for an injection. No illegal substances were found in her home, and toxicology tests showed no illegal substances in her system. Police also observed that a trash bag may have been missing from Michelle's apartment. They speculate that someone injected something into Michelle, causing her death, and then threw the trash bag away to remove the evidence. Police searched the trash cans on the street near her home and found Michelle's trash because it had not been collected. They found checks and letters with her name on them, along with a syringe and a bottle of painkillers. This prescription drug is very dangerous, and an overdose can be fatal. Toxicology testing for this drug had never been done before because it requires a special test. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy had never encountered this drug in her many years of practice. When the final test was done, it was found that Michelle's body contained a very high concentration of the drug, which caused her death without leaving any trace. This drug is not commonly used for general use. It is mainly used by anesthesiologists during surgery. The police interviewed Michelle's friend Jessica and learned about her complicated relationships with Jason, Scott, and Oliver. This information intrigued the police, as they suspected that one of these men might have harmed Michelle out of jealousy. However, who could it have been? Jason had already been ruled out as a suspect. According to a friend, Michelle's relationship with Scott was very brief and hadn't really developed. He understood when Michelle returned to her ex and stayed out of her life. Michelle was deeply in love with Jason and wanted to be with him, while she saw Oliver as just a friend, although he wanted more from her. Oliver soon became a suspect. In hindsight, Jessica realized there were many warning signs in Oliver's behavior. He followed Michelle everywhere, but it seemed sweet and innocent, so no one saw him as a threat. During a conversation with the police, Michelle's grief-stricken mother mentioned that the last time she spoke to her daughter was around 11 p.m. on November 7th. This made her the last person to speak with Michelle. Michelle's final words to her mother were that Oliver was supposed to come over to help her fill out some documents. The police found it strange that she invited a guy over late at night, especially when he had feelings for her and she didn't like him. There had to be a reason for this. It was revealed that Oliver worked in the hospital's surgical department and had access to a variety of drugs, including painkillers. He had previously helped Michelle with her migraines. Michelle's landlord, Peter, came to the police station to share a strange story about her. About a week before Michelle died, Peter needed to pick up some things from her apartment but couldn't get in touch with her. This was unusual for Michelle, who always paid her rent on time, kept the apartment clean, and didn't ignore him. Concerned, Peter went to the apartment and knocked on the door, but it took a long time for anyone to answer. Finally, a shirtless man with messy black hair and glasses opened the door. He looked outside for a moment and said that this wasn't a good time. Peter explained that he needed to get his things. However, the man slammed the door shut and told Peter to come back in a few hours. Peter was confused and did not understand the situation. After he left, Michelle called him back to apologize for the unpleasant situation. She explained that she had a severe migraine and her friend was treating her. Peter saw a picture of Oliver and recognized him as the man in Michelle's apartment. The police found a butterfly needle in Michelle's bag at her apartment. This type of needle is often used to inject drugs. Jessica confirmed that Oliver had given Michelle medication to relieve her migraine. Jessica also mentioned that Michelle was afraid of regular needles, so Oliver used a small butterfly syringe instead. Michelle could not inject the needle herself because she was too afraid to even look at it. If she injected the drug incorrectly, she would die immediately. So the drug was administered by someone with medical knowledge. This again pointed to Oliver's involvement. The police finally understood why Michelle had remained friends with Oliver and invited him to her home. He had provided her with a strong painkiller. Police did not find Oliver's fingerprints on the syringe or vial. He may have worn gloves and disposed of them elsewhere, leaving only Michelle's DNA. To charge him, the police would need to link the syringe to Oliver. The vials had a unique identification number, indicating they came from the department where Oliver worked. The drugs were stored in a special refrigerator that required a patient number and staff name to retrieve the drugs. This discovery confirmed that Oliver had taken the vials. Later, the police went to the hospital to talk to Oliver, but he did not show up for work. It was discovered that he had been fired on November 9th, shortly after Michelle's murder. Police suspected that he had been fired for using dangerous drugs, but hospital management denied this, saying that Oliver had been fired because his skills did not meet their standards. However, rumors circulated in the hospital that Oliver had been fired due to a shortage of medication. The police found out that Oliver was working at another clinic. They went to the clinic and spoke to a nurse who was surprised to see them. Oliver was then taken to the police station for questioning. He said that he had heard about Michelle's death from someone and expressed his condolences. The police were surprised and asked if they were close friends. Oliver replied that they were just acquaintances. The police then asked why he talked to her on the phone every day. Oliver did not answer. Instead, he said that he had to get back to work and left. At that time, the police did not have a warrant for his arrest. Oliver calmly arrived on campus and collected his things. The guy told Jessica at the end that he was going on vacation and left. It turned out that Oliver went to visit his ex-wife and daughter and then flew to his homeland in Ireland. There, he received a license and got a job at the hospital. After the police took the bottle of painkillers used on Michelle for analysis, the DNA test results came back. Confirmed that there was Oliver's DNA on the bottle cap, indicating that he had injected Michelle with a fatal dose of the drug. The police discovered that Oliver had left but was unable to act, despite having a warrant for his arrest. Extradition to the United States is often controversial for countries that oppose the death penalty. In this case, an Irish journalist alerted the police to Michelle's story. He proposed publishing an article detailing Michelle's death and highlighting Oliver's possible involvement, including his photograph and arrest warrant, to alert the public. The police approved and the article was published in April 2006. Upon reading the article, Oliver fled the country to Africa, where he had previously worked, fearing public backlash. He was eventually tracked down, arrested, and extradited to the US, where he was jailed. Oliver was charged with Michelle's murder but pleaded not guilty. His lawyers argued it was an accident, claiming that Michelle had requested Oliver to inject her with drugs for pain relief. That evening, Oliver miscalculated the dose, inadvertently giving her a lethal amount, leading to her death. The dose administered was 4 times the lethal amount, which was surprising since no one could believe an experienced nurse familiar with the drug would make such an error. Oliver did not apologize to the deceased's family for this mistake. The prosecutor had a different theory, suggesting that Oliver killed Michelle out of jealousy and revenge, as he did not want to share her with another man. It was alleged that he deliberately gave her the fatal dose with the intent to murder. During the trial, witnesses stated that Oliver was in love with Michelle and had been stalking her. Additionally, Oliver's cellmate testified that Oliver confessed to being deeply in love with Michelle, but she did not return his feelings. Oliver overheard a conversation between Michelle and Jason, where she professed her love for Jason and said Oliver meant nothing to her. Feeling humiliated by this, Oliver allegedly decided to take revenge by ending her life. Oliver had gained Michelle's trust through his medical care. However, he exploited this trust by injecting her with a quadruple lethal dose of medication. As a result, the jury convicted Oliver O'Quinn of first-degree murder, and he received a life sentence without the chance for parole. The case of Christy Giles. Christy and her friends attended a Halloween party at Soho House, West Hollywood, and had a fantastic time. After the party, however, Christy and her friend Hilda didn't go home. Christy Giles, born November 5, 1997, grew up in Mount Olive, Alabama. She is extremely beautiful and intelligent, attracting attention wherever she goes. Christy was the runner-up in the Miss Alabama beauty pageant. At the age of 14, she signed her first modeling contract, gaining financial independence from her parents. At the age of 18, she moved to Los Angeles, California after being recruited by a famous modeling agency. By the age of 24, she had become a successful model, appearing in fashion magazines and advertising for major brands, while also exploring acting. Christy is very close to her parents and sisters. In 2019, Christy met Jan and married him on August 31, 2020. They are a loving couple and her husband owns a candy store. On Friday, November 12, Christy, along with Christine Giles, Hilda Marcelo Sobrales Arzola, and another friend whose name is unknown, attended a Halloween party. Jan was away in San Francisco for the weekend and couldn't join them. After the party, Christy and Hilda did not return home. At around 5 p.m. on Saturday, Christy's body was found dead on the sidewalk outside a Culver City hospital where she had been left. 2 hours later, Hilda, 26, was found outside another hospital, still alive and in critical condition. Her family traveled from Mexico to be by her side, hoping she would recover. Sadly, there was no miracle. Hilda was declared brain dead 2 weeks later and taken off life support. Her organs were donated, allowing part of her to continue living. Hilda, who is from Mexico, graduated with honors and landed her dream job as an interior designer in Los Angeles. A third friend who attended the party with Christy left early and was not injured. Preliminary autopsy results indicate the girls died of an overdose of illegal substances. Toxicology reports found a mixture of drugs in their systems, but no signs of a physical struggle. It is unclear how the drugs entered their systems, as both girls said they lived healthy lifestyles. Initially, Los Angeles police believed the girls had voluntarily taken the drugs, leading to their overdoses. However, after interviewing a friend of Christy and Hilda, their views changed. The friend mentioned that the girls had met several men at the party, and that the men had invited them elsewhere. She described the group as 4 men in their 40s and 1 woman. 2 men act indecently, running around shirtless as if they are on drugs, while a third man, who appears sober, focuses on Hilda. A 4th man and a woman appear to be a couple. This group stands out at the party because of their age. Initially, the woman compliments Christy's friend, leading to an introduction to the men. Feeling uncomfortable, Christy's friend left the party with her brother an hour after the group arrived. Surveillance footage revealed 3 masked men dropping the women's bodies at separate hospitals before fleeing. Christy's husband, Jan, was deeply saddened by her death, as she had never used drugs, especially since her cousin had struggled with addiction and a close friend had died of an overdose. Jan suspected her drink had been spiked. At 12 o'clock, Jan tracked her phone to an apartment building at 8641 West Olympic Boulevard in Los Angeles, where the girls reportedly attended a party. Her phone was still there at 1:30 a.m. The police discovered that the building had only 7 apartments and identified which one hosted the party and who invited the girls. It was David Pierce's apartment. He claimed the girls took drugs voluntarily, but he has no information about what happened to them. Recently, it was reported that the police interviewed David's neighbors. They mentioned hearing strange sounds, like cries of pain, coming from his apartment on Saturday throughout the day. They also noticed that many people frequently visited his place, often making noise. Other bones from the first party also saw David with friends at the party and they behaved strangely. After Jan shared Christie's story on social media, he received numerous messages from other girls who had similar experiences involving these men. They reported being taken from parties, drugged, and raped, though all the girls survived. Out of fear, they did not report it to the police. Christie's father was a military officer who served in Iraq and trained his daughters in self-defense. Christie's sisters were well prepared and could defend themselves even with a ballpoint pen. This makes it all the more puzzling for Christie's parents to understand what happened to her, as there were no signs of a struggle on her body. Hilda's family is also seeking justice for both Hilda and Christie. Hilda's parents are confident that their daughter did not willingly consume any illegal substances. They had taught her about the dangers of drugs. Hilda was an active person who loved sports and hiking. Her family believes that the girls were forcefully given drugs with the intent of assaulting them, but the perpetrators overdosed them by mistake. What angered the parents was that instead of taking Hilda and Christie to the hospital to save them, the men chose to abandon them. On December 16, 2021, the Los Angeles Police Department announced the arrest of 3 men connected to the deaths of Christie Giles and her friend Hilda. David Pierce, 37, was arrested for manslaughter and is being held on $1 million bail. Michael Ansbach, 47, and Brant Osborne, 42, were arrested for being accessories after the fact to manslaughter, with both held on $100,000 bail. These men were the last to see the women alive. A photo has surfaced showing Hilda with David and Michael at the party. Location data from Christie's phone showed that she and Hilda had gone to David's apartment in East Los Angeles after attending a party. They were reportedly out with 3 men in the early morning hours of November 13th, according to David's neighbors. A Toyota Prius seen in surveillance footage matched the vehicle used when 3 masked men dropped Christie and Hilda off near the hospital. The men were known to frequent clubs and bars in Los Angeles, meeting women at parties, inviting them to their homes, allegedly using illegal drugs, raping them, and then releasing them. But for Christie and Hilda, it appears they miscalculated, leading to their overdoses. The police are currently gathering information from all the affected girls. Several girls have already come forward, claiming they ended up in David's apartment under similar circumstances. They believe that the men spiked their drinks without their consent, causing them to black out and lose memory of the events. Some girls also reported that the men harassed them, pretending to be film producers, and invited them to a casting. It has been revealed that Michael is a videographer, Brant is an actor with minor TV roles, and David is an actor and producer known. According to several co-stars on set, Brant bragged about driving Christie's Hyundai the night they died. Actor Stephen Bauer, known for his role in the cult classic Scarface, has come forward to say he witnessed David assaulting a girl at a house party in Beverly Hills. The men were questioned by the police and admitted to taking the girls home from the party. However, they claimed the girls took drugs voluntarily and overdosed. Unsure of what to do, they decided not to call 911 to avoid trouble. Instead, they left Christie's body near a hospital after removing the car's license plate to avoid detection. They later left Hilda's body at the hospital, hoping she would regain consciousness. To date, the police have not received the CCTV footage as the investigation is still ongoing. A GoFundMe has raised more than $130,000 for the girls' funerals or investigation, and the amount continues to grow every day. On November 20th, 2021, a memorial service was held for Christie in California. Friends laid flowers on the beach, carved hearts in the sand, and erected bushes and arches in her memory. Brant, 42, and Michael, 47, were both arrested on suspicion of being accessory to manslaughter in connection with the deaths of Christie and Hilda, but have since been released from custody while the investigation continues. The case of Christina Purcell. Christina Purcell, a 41-year-old veterinarian, worked at a clinic in the small town of Greer, South Carolina, which has a population of 35,000. Her colleagues all described her as an exceptional person. She was regarded as the best in her department and was highly experienced. She had a great sense of humor, which helped alleviate challenging situations at work. Her co-workers respected her, and management highly valued her talents. Christina had a young daughter, whom she co-parented with her ex-husband, John Mello, during the early years of her life. Friends and acquaintances all agreed that her daughter meant everything to her. After their daughter's birth, Christina and John separated but maintained joint custody. Then, she was engaged to a new partner named Bradley. Despite an apparently perfect life, but she was involved in a custody battle with her ex-husband, John, and the custody dispute between them was intense. On October 5, 2021, when their daughter visited her father, John, he flew her to Italy. This prompted Christina to file a complaint against him for violating custody, which further strained their relationship. Christina even launched a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for her legal expenses, and many people contributed. On October 13, 2021, Bradley, aged 65, tried calling Christina's in the morning. After she failed to answer, he went to her house. He knocked, and when there was no response, he entered through the back door. Inside, he discovered a horrifying scene. Her lifeless body was in the living room with rose petals scattered around. So, he immediately called 911, but it was too late to save her. Police discovered over 30 stab wounds on her body, mostly on her head, face, and neck. Although the scene was chaotic, it did not resemble a typical robbery. The police found unusual mystical objects in the house, hinting that someone unstable might have conducted a sacrificial ritual. This led investigators to consider the possibility of a ritual murder. Forensic experts determined that Christina was murdered elsewhere. Evidence of dragging was found throughout the house, and in some areas, the body was left behind and placed in various positions, possibly to take photographs of sexual acts. Later, the body was moved to the living room and covered with rose petals, with petals also strewn along the path where it was dragged. When information about the incident leaked to the press, they dubbed it the rose petal murder. At that moment, the police have not found any signs of forced entry into the house. However, Bradley, who alerted emergency services, had entered through the back door. He informed detectives that this door was always left unlocked, suggesting the intruder could have entered the same way. At the crime scene, detectives discovered clear signs of staging that complicated their investigation. They had to sort through numerous conflicting pieces of evidence to discard the irrelevant and find the right direction. Detectives have never encountered such complex and confusing murder cases before, making it difficult to determine which lead to pursue. They suspected that the murder was intentional. The perpetrator had specifically gone to Christina's house to commit it. And detectives must find out his motives and who he is. Inside the house, they found memory cards and the laptop in the living room, near the body. A transparent handbag containing a powerful illegal drug was also discovered. There were small droplets of dried blood, and Christina's mobile phone lay nearby. In the hallway, a bag was found with 2 white envelopes, each containing $500 in cash. A suitcase held a firearm, a single-shot self-defense pistol, and numerous documents related to a court case involving Christina's daughter, prompting detectives to consider the possibility that her ex-husband, John Mello, was involved. Forensic experts used luminol to examine the entire house, enabling them to detect even the smallest traces of blood. They discovered hundreds of tiny blood spots in various places, highlighting the attack's brutality. Christina suffered a significant loss of blood and endured severe pain before dying. She was stabbed 31 times. The police scrutinized Christina's mobile phone for any leads. Initially, detectives focused on whether her partner, Bradley, who found her body, might be involved in the attack. To compare information, they also retrieved his mobile phone to analyze its contents. Police noticed peculiar behavior from he. He was highly agitated. His reaction didn't seem like that of a grieving fiancé. He was trembling, inconsistent in his statements, and wore gloves throughout his interactions with the investigators. This behavior only heightened the suspicion of law enforcement. Later, it became clear that their suspicions were justified. While investigating Christina and Bradley's devices, the police uncovered shocking details about Bradley's life, clarifying his nervous behavior. They had strong reasons to suspect that he was exploiting her daughter, Jane Doe, to create explicit content. In February and August, he recorded videos and took photographs of Jane nude in various inappropriate poses. These materials were found on the phone and laptop that were confiscated for examination. However, it is not clear whether this was done secretly or with her consent. Doubts emerged after the police discovered more disturbing information from Bradley's laptop that revealed unsettling aspects of the intimate relationship between Christina and he. The police uncovered increasingly disturbing information, including a new type of victim, animals. Numerous photographs were discovered showing individuals involved in sexual acts with animals, mainly dogs. Shockingly, Christina, one of the clinic's leading veterinarians, who occasionally took animals home for temporary care, was involved in these acts. According to state law, such sexual offenses can result in up to 5 years in prison, and the offender must pay a fine of at least $500, which may be increased at the court's discretion. Law enforcement described these recordings as some of the most repulsive materials they had ever encountered. The public was outraged upon learning that Christina, a seemingly kind woman from a veterinary clinic, was involved in such acts with her daughter and dogs. After discovering all this evidence, Bradley Post was arrested on October 19, 2021. He was charged with the sexual exploitation of a minor and the distribution of explicit materials. It emerged that he not only created photos and videos but also sold them. Additionally, the police considered the possibility of his involvement of Christina's death, but he firmly denied any involvement. Detectives found no evidence linking him to the murder. There was no trace of blood on his body or clothes. Furthermore, Christina had died several hours before he arrived at the house, leading the police to doubt his connection to the murder. Christina's ex-husband, John Mello, is also a suspect in the case. His main motive was gaining full custody of their daughter, which he did not want to share with Christina. This is a common motive for murder. However, at the time of the crime, John was in Italy with his daughter. This alibi was easy to verify since he hadn't returned to the country. Despite this, investigators kept John on their list of suspects, considering he might have orchestrated the crime indirectly. John returned to the country on October 21, 2021, a week after Christina's murder. Following his return, the police obtained a warrant for his detention. He sought help from his best friend, Zachary Hughes, who was 29 years old at the time. Zachary seemed suspicious to the police, so they looked deeper into his background. He was born and raised in Morro Bay, California. The turning point for him came in 2005 when his parents vacationed in Virginia. During this trip, they adopted 5 children from Russia. These children had suffered abuse in their previous foster families, resulting in physical and psychological trauma. The adoption aimed to teach Zachary and his brother Ellie about morality and to provide the adopted children with a safe, loving, and stable home. Zachary and Ellie struggled to communicate with their new siblings, leading to frequent family conflicts due to misunderstandings. Zachary's entire family worked on the farm, but he had a special talent: he studied music. His parents bought him a piano, and he became very skilled at playing it, which was especially noticeable in high school. He started participating in music competitions and won first place at the Southeastern Piano Festival. He has achieved great success, even performing a solo program with the South Carolina Philharmonic Orchestra. In 2010, he applied to the Juilliard School in New York, where Irina taught piano at an advanced level. Not only was Zachary accepted, but he was also offered several scholarships for his exceptional talent. Thanks to his exceptional talent, Zachary outperformed all his classmates and became the only student from the USA selected to participate in the International Music Festival in Kyoto. Only 11 people from around the world were chosen for this event. Those who know he say he is a loyal friend, highly moral and very good at communication. In his free time, he used his skills to help those in need, often performing for free at rehabilitation centers, nursing homes, and hospitals to bring joy to people. By 2018, Zachary enrolled in a master's program in piano performance at the university. At that time, he had a strong desire to help people globally. This led him to volunteer for the United States Marine Corps and apply to a military educational institution to become an officer within a year. He understood the intricacies of military service, but at the start of his second year, he suffered fractures in both legs. This injury forced him to halt his studies and receive the title of Hello. Around this time, a woman reached out to Zachary, seeking a talented pianist for a church in Greer, South Carolina. He accepted the offer and moved there to perform regularly. And he received half of the donations collected from churchgoers. Initially, this provided a good income, but by the mid-2020s, the pandemic significantly reduced the number of church attendees. As a result, he had to find new income sources. He began giving solo performances throughout the city and state and took on additional part-time jobs. Additionally, he started a blog offering valuable piano lessons. To support his performances, he acquired portable electrical equipment, which provided him with the necessary mobility. While living and working in South Carolina, Zachary met John, Christina's ex-husband and a former music producer. John supported Zachary by helping him with performances and offers him a part-time job. Between mid-2020 and 2021, when he assisted John with household chores, which deepened their friendship. He became John's closest friend. As a result, the police questioned him about his possible involvement in Christina's murder, wondering if John could have asked him to do such a thing. Meanwhile, investigators reviewed CCTV footage from a camera located near Christina's house. A camera installed in the peephole of the house opposite captured all the incident outside Christina's home on the day of her murder. The footage showed a stranger wearing dark clothing and a hooded jacket entering her house around 10 a.m. A few hours after, the stranger left on a bicycle, this time wearing a mask. Christina did not leave the house, and no one else visited, until the next day, when Bradley arrived and found her dead. This evidence cleared Bradley from the list of suspects in the murder case, although he remained in jail on other charges. Investigators suspected that a stranger in dark clothing, captured on camera, was the killer, but they couldn't identify him. His face was covered, and there were no distinguishing features on his body. They then requested footage from surveillance cameras along the bicycle paths to trace his movements and began reviewing the recordings. This process was lengthy but fruitful. The bicycle appeared in several videos, including one where the stranger in black was loading it into the back of his pickup truck. Although the grainy footage obscured the license plate, the model, make, and color of the truck matched Zachary's vehicle. It seemed he was involved in the brutal murder of Christina's. The police obtained a warrant to search Zachary's house. There, they found a bicycle identical to the one used by the attacker. They seized Zachary's computer for examination. Through this, they discovered active correspondence between John and Zachary, uncovering over 1,700 text messages, most of which were encrypted. The messages were clearly coded and contained hidden information. Additionally, some texts were jumbled. They probably did this to distract the police if the police suddenly contacted them. Detectives found the following clues in the messages. On April 17, 2021, 6 months before Christina's death, John asked to host a party for her. This message was not encrypted. On the day of the murder, John asked a friend how the musical performance went, and the friend replied that everything was great. Although it seemed like a harmless question, the police discovered there was no performance that day. They suspected that John used performance as a code word for the murder of Christina. All other information on Zachary's phone was either encrypted or deleted. He also used an access code unknown to the police, which complicated and delayed their investigation. Additionally, they couldn't obtain data on the device's location at the time of the attack on Christina. The phone was frequently switched to flight mode, including when the mysterious masked man came to Christina's house. It appears this was done on purpose to prevent Zachary from being tracked and to avoid involvement in the crime scene. Based on the evidence collected, officers obtained a warrant for Zachary's arrest. While they were preparing to file charges, Zachary was invited to perform on an international cruise. By the time the warrant was issued, he was already in Europe, so the detectives had to wait. Fortunately, when the charges were filed, Zachary had returned to Michigan, unaware that they were planning to arrest him. He could have easily left the country by crossing into Canada or taking another flight to a cruise ship. However, once he learned about the charges, he voluntarily returned to South Carolina and surrendered to the police, believing they were mistaken. On November 3, 2021, Zachary hired lawyers to defend his reputation, stating he was not guilty of any wrongdoing and intended to refute the slander tarnishing his name. However, he refused to allow the police access to his phone, prompting them to file a court petition. The court subsequently ordered full access to the mobile phone. Despite this, he repeatedly provided incorrect passwords, which delayed the investigation. Finally, by April 8, 2023, after approximately 700,000 attempts, the smartphone was unlocked. The police discovered crucial messages between John and he, discussing their encrypted plans to kill Christina. While these messages were intended to be used as trial evidence, they were considered circumstantial and insufficient to determine the trial's outcome. Zachary and John were known for their impeccable reputation, supported by many witnesses, and had no prior criminal history. The jury could not rely solely on correspondence and footage of a similar car to convict them. More new evidence emerged when a forensic examination uncovered the criminal's DNA under Christina's fingernails, which matched Zachary's DNA. Consequently, the police could confidently assert that he was the one who attacked and brutally killed Christina in her home. The defense argued that the CCTV footage did not clearly show the criminal's face or accurately identify the car involved. As a result, they labeled the evidence as circumstantial, as initially assumed. They emphasized that Zachary had no prior legal issues and was described by friends and acquaintances as a kind person incapable of committing a violent crime. Additionally, there was no apparent motive for him to attack Christina. And the lawyers rejected the DNA test results, claiming the samples were tampered with or contaminated. From the outset of the trial, once the public became aware that Zachary, the renowned musician, might face imprisonment, the court received numerous letters from dissatisfied people. These letters came from former classmates, teachers, Zachary's friends, and even people who didn't personally know him but admired his musical talent. Among the supporters were also numerous employers who praised his skills. Collectively, they vouched for his character, adamantly believing that someone as talented and kind-hearted could not be a murderer. In total, the court received over 50 such letters. The lawyers emphasized that Zachary had no previous legal issues. He had served in the U.S. Army, having volunteered and pursued education to become an officer rather than just serving as a private soldier. Additionally, Zachary could have avoided any legal troubles by simply accepting an invitation to return to work on a cruise liner. However, He chose to return to his home state and turn himself into the police as soon as he learned about the charges against him. He was fully aware of everything, including the warrants that the police were obtaining to investigate further. Despite this, he wasn't deterred because he believed he was innocent. The lawyers presented this as key evidence of his innocence. Zachary requested to be released on a $100,000 bail so he could be placed under house arrest with his parents until the trial, allowing him to stay in a calm environment where he could play his favorite instrument. He also agreed to have no contact with the families involved in the case. However, the court denied his bail request, leading to his transfer to prison. He remains there, awaiting trial set for 2024. He continues to deny any involvement in Christina's death. John also denies all charges. During a conversation with investigators, he explained that he fled to Italy with his daughter. He said he was exhausted from legal battles with his Christina and was horrified to discover that her fiancé, Bradley, had inappropriate intentions towards his 9-year-old daughter. Evidence suggested Christina was involved, as she appeared in some photos with her daughter. So John claims he took his daughter away to protect her from Christina, her unstable mother. He intended to challenge for custody using the explicit photos taken by Bradley and believed he had a strong case. If Christina lost custody, John would have no motive to harm her. Nevertheless, John repeatedly insisted he would fight for his daughter at any cost, despite he not commenting on his connection to Zachary. The prosecution believes Zachary is involved because his DNA was found under Christina's fingernails, indicating she resisted him. He may be either a co-conspirator or a victim of John's manipulation. The investigation into Christina Purcell's death has become intricate, full of unexpected developments and mysteries. Detectives persist in seeking justice for her, gradually assembling clues to identify the mastermind and uncover the case's dark secrets. Although the journey to bring justice to she may be long, but it will certainly not stop. The investigation team hopes that the case will soon be illuminated, allowing she to rest in peace. The case of Mark Despain. On Wednesday afternoon, August 24, 2011, 33-year-old Michelle Despain left work to collect some urgent documents from home. She arrived back from the bank around 3 p.m. and noticed the back door was unlocked, which alarmed her. Upon entering, she found the house completely ransacked. Drawers were open, items were scattered everywhere, there was broken glass on the floor, some clothes were tossed in the bathtub, and a jewelry box was open in the bedroom. Then she made a horrifying discovery. Her husband Mark was lying unconscious on the kitchen floor. He had been shot and was bleeding. Frightened, Michelle screamed and ran outside. She called 911 and told them that robbers had broken into the house and shot her husband. The police then arrived at the scene of the crime. When the police and ambulance arrived, they found the house in complete chaos. At first, it appeared that a robbery had taken place. Doctors later confirmed that Mark had been dead in the kitchen. The medical examiner stated that Mark had been dead about an hour before the police arrived. He had 2 gunshot wounds, one to the chest and one to the head. Burns to his skin indicated that he had been shot at close range. After a careful examination, the police suspected that the crime scene was staged. They discovered that on the day of the incident, Mark was at home, then had lunch with Michelle at a cafe. After lunch, they had ice cream and took some dessert home. Michelle then went back to work, while Mark returned home. The police questioned why the robbers executed Mark at close range, suspecting that this was a planned attack rather than a spontaneous act of violence during a robbery. The police started gathering detailed information about Mark Despain and his family. Mark began dating Michelle when she was 18 and he was 19, though they had known each other since school. Michelle had a young daughter from a previous relationship. Soon, they decided to live together, and Mark's parents bought them a trailer. Mark treated Michelle's daughter as his own and worked in the family business as an investor and real estate appraiser. As Mark's career advanced, he founded his own company and earned a substantial income. The couple moved from a trailer to a large, beautiful house with a swimming pool in a prestigious area of Jonesboro, Arkansas, USA. Michelle and Mark had 2 more children together, and their family of 5 appeared friendly, wealthy, and happy. They vacationed at expensive resorts several times a year, including trips to Mexico and Disneyland. Initially, Michelle was a housewife but later began helping Mark with his business and worked at a local bank. Despite Mark offering for her to stay home, she wanted to pursue her career. After Mark's suspicious death, Michelle became the prime suspect in the case. She was summoned to the police station for questioning. Michelle claimed that she had a solid alibi, as she was at work that day and only went home for work-related reasons, where she accidentally discovered her husband's body. Her alibi was confirmed by surveillance camera footage showing her returning to work after lunch at the time her husband was murdered. As a result, suspicions against Michelle were dismissed. The police interviewed neighbors, who mentioned seeing a suspicious black man driving an old blue Mercedes in the area on the day of the crime. Police considered whether Mark had any enemies or people who might have wanted to harm him. Some family acquaintances described Mark as a powerful and ambitious man who could have made enemies. A work check revealed that he was scheduled to work that day but suddenly decided to go hunting and stay home. Police spoke with Michelle again to clarify the timeline of events and possibly uncover new details they may have missed before. Michelle told police that she met Mark for lunch that day. They went to a coffee shop near the bank where she worked. After lunch, Michelle returned to work at 1:30 p.m. and returned home again after 2:30 p.m., where she found Mark murdered. This time, however, Michelle revealed new details. She said that when she saw Mark lying on the floor in a pool of blood, she approached him to check if he was still alive. Michelle shook Mark's leg and called his name, but he didn't respond, so she assumed he was dead. Michelle ran out of the house and called 911, then waited for the police to arrive. She called her mother, explained what had happened and asked her to come. When her mother arrived, Michelle was near her house, and the police and ambulance were already on the scene. The police asked Michelle if she knew anyone who might want to harm her husband. To everyone's surprise, she confidently named Mark's father, Jack. Michelle explained her reasons for suspecting him. Initially, when she and Mark got together, his parents seemed like good people. They even bought them a trailer to start their life and supported Mark in his work at his father's company for several years. However, after Mark became a successful employee, he wanted more responsibility and asked his father for a larger share of the company. His father refused, leading to a fallout between them. Mark then decided to leave and start his own company. Jack was upset about this, and since then, they hadn't communicated. Michelle realized that Jack was cruel and cold-hearted after getting to know her husband's parents better. Jack immediately disliked her daughter from a previous marriage, and a serious feud erupted between him and the 13-year-old. Jack also showed hostility towards Michelle herself, leading her to suspect he might harm Mark out of spite. Michelle's father shared her concerns, having encountered Mark's father while working for him and believing Jack capable of murder. He even heard Jack threaten his own son with violence, and they had a strained relationship due to a business dispute. The police took note of this information and began investigating the relationship between Mark and his father. They discovered that Mark and Jack had argued over money and the company years ago, leading to a strained relationship. However, it was unclear why the father suddenly decided to kill his son at this time. The police spoke to Mark's parents. The father confirmed the argument but mentioned that the money dispute started because of Michelle's influence. According to them, Michelle always wanted more and was never satisfied with their financial situation. Even though Mark made a lot of money, she insisted that he ask his father to transfer most of the company to him. During their arguments, it was clear that Michelle was to blame for everything. Jack said that they kept in touch with their son despite their arguments, but ignored Michelle. Shortly before the tragedy, Mark revealed his intention to divorce his wife. That day, Mark called Jack, asking him to stop by the house to buy hunting supplies. The father noted that only Michelle knew he would be home that day. Mark's mother mentioned that Michelle feared divorce because it would mean losing the finances and status she had enjoyed from Mark. Her parents advised the police to investigate Michelle's actions on the day of the murder further, suggesting that she may be more complex than she appears. The father suspected that she was involved in the case, perhaps not as a killer but as an organizer. Jack reported an incident that Michelle had mentioned to the police, involving a conflict with Michelle's daughter, Brooke. Jack discovered that Brooke was having a romantic relationship with her boyfriend and found several revealing photos on her phone. Jack warned her to end the relationship and stop taking such photos, and threatened to tell her parents. In retaliation, Brooke used Jack's phone to take topless selfies and sent them to her boyfriend, then told her mother that Jack had been harassing her and taking inappropriate photos. Michelle was furious when she found the photos on Jack's phone and accused him of taking them. Jack denied the accusations, and Michelle fought back, leading to a fight. After the incident, Jack's wife left him and filed for divorce, suspecting him of child molestation. Michelle reported Jack to the police, but the investigation revealed that Jack was not involved. It was confirmed that the photos were taken by Brooke herself. No charges were filed against him, and Jack's wife returned after the truth was revealed. However, the experience left a lasting negative impact on their relationship, damaging Jack's reputation and health. They decided to cut ties with Michelle and her daughter, allowing her to raise Brooke as she wished. Brooke later admitted that her mother had convinced her to take the photos to damage Jack's reputation, alienate Mark from his father, and their plan almost succeeded. Jack and his wife were not considered suspects because they had a solid alibi. They were on vacation in another city on the day of the murder. Based on a tip from Mark's father, the police turned their attention to Michelle. They wanted to understand why Michelle would kill her husband and what her motive might be. Michelle and Mark had shared 15 happy years together, raising 2 children and building a successful business. They lived a comfortable life without any financial worries. So why would Michelle kill her husband and risk losing the family's main source of income? Police quickly uncovered that Michelle was not the grieving widow she appeared to be. In reality, she was having an affair with a younger colleague, who was 24 years old, a few months before Mark's death. She fully supported him financially, covering his apartment, groceries, and all bills with the money her husband earned. The police also learned that Mark had significant debt totaling about $2 million, despite his substantial wealth. Michelle was found to be taking money from her husband's business account, and it was discovered that Mark had 2 life insurance policies totaling $1 million. This new evidence further raised suspicions about Michelle, leading police to call her in for questioning. Police questioned Michelle about an affair with another man. She admitted to having a new romantic interest in a young man but insisted her husband was unaware of the affair. Michelle explained that their marriage had been troubled for a long time and they were discussing divorce. She planned to move out soon but denied any involvement in her husband's murder. Michelle argued that she had no motive to kill him, as he was a loving father and will pay a large alimony. Despite their suspicions, the police lacked concrete evidence against Michelle. Surveillance camera footage from the bank where Michelle worked confirmed her presence at work during the murder. The investigation hit a dead end. The case took a dramatic turn when police received information from a person who reported that someone was bragging about killing Mark Despain. The person was identified as Terrence Barker. Police investigated and discovered that Terrence's phone had been near Mark's home at the time of the murder. They also learned that a friend of Terrence owned an old blue Mercedes. When Mark's neighbors, who had seen the African American in the Mercedes, were shown Terrence's photo, they identified him. Police located Terrence and brought him in for questioning. Although Terrence initially denied any involvement, Terrence eventually confessed to shooting Mark. He revealed that a client had promised to pay him $10,000 for the murder, which was why he accepted the job. However, he refused to reveal the client's identity and claimed that he had not yet been paid for the murder. Terrence was arrested and charged with murder. Police found and questioned Johnny Hubbard, the driver of the blue Mercedes and Mark's friend. Police hoped Johnny would cooperate with the police and share information. Johnny was one of Mark's tenants and knew Michelle's father, Carl Kelly. Johnny agreed to assist the police and reveal everything. He explained that Carl had approached him about Mark's murder and would pay him money. Terrence knows about this plan and also wants to join to make money. They met Carl in a parking lot near the church to plan the crime. Their plan was for Terrence to shoot Mark. Even though Terrence did not know Mark, he agreed to join in for the money. As a result, Johnny was arrested and charged with murder. When Terrence found out about Johnny's testimony against him, he decided to reveal everything as well. He confirmed his friend's account and added that Carl gave him a gun near the church, which he used to shoot Mark. Carl showed them Mark's house and said they needed to wait for his command to carry out the murder. On the day of the crime, Terrence also revealed that not only was Carl involved, but his daughter Michelle was too. Michelle was the mastermind behind the operation, giving her father instructions over the phone. Her father helped her with everything and covered for her. Police reviewed the messages between Michelle and her father and discovered a text that exposed her involvement. At 8:20 a.m. on the day of the murder, she texted her father, "I can't live like this, it's been a terrible morning." Her father replied, "Okay, you can take him out to lunch." The police believed that Michelle had arranged to meet Mark for lunch that day, which gave her father the chance to take Terrence into the house, hide there, and wait for Mark to return home so he could shoot him. Carl's phone records showed that he was present at the crime scene during the murder and played a role in the planning. An analysis of Michelle's communications with her husband on the day of the murder showed that she invited Mark to lunch. He initially refused because he was planning to go hunting, but she insisted and asked her husband to meet, and he eventually agreed. Throughout their lunch, Michelle kept in touch with her father via text message, informing Carl when they had finished eating and when Mark was on his way home. Michelle and her father were arrested. Michelle initially denied any involvement, but eventually confessed and claimed that her father was solely responsible for the crime. She said that her father had planned the crime, motivated by insurance money and a desire to take over the family business. However, the police were skeptical of her claim because she had sent her father a text message that morning urging them to kill. Carl eventually admitted his role in the crime. Michelle and her father, Carl Kelly, were charged with first-degree murder of Mark. The 4 people arrested in the case later agreed to plead guilty to the prosecution, which reduced their sentences but also prevented them from appealing the court's decision in the future. Mark's parents accepted the deal because they wanted to avoid a lengthy trial. Terrence Barker and Carl Kelly received sentences of 35 years each. Johnny Hubbard was sentenced to 18 years, and Michelle Despain received 30 years.